Hello, everybody. Welcome to our panel. We are going to be talking today about the resilience of animation. 2020 was a really hard and unique year for everyone, including everyone in the entertainment industry. And animation still was able to continue to work and put out content. And there's some special aspects about our industry that allowed us to persevere even with the challenges of quarantine and COVID-19. So to kick off the panel, I'd love to go around and introduce our panelists or have them introduce themselves. I'll just start. I'm Marge Dean. I'm president of Women in Animation, as well as head of Crunchyroll Studios. Been working in animation for more than 25 years and produced wide varieties of episodic series work. And I will pass it over to Jinko.
Hi, my name is Jinko Goto, and I produce animated features. And the counterpart, working with Marge Dean as Vice President for Women in Animation. I have been working in the animation space for over 25 years in the feature space. Prior to that, I worked in commercials, and I have worked at Disney, Pixar, Warner Brothers. I've done a lot of indies as well. Currently, I'm producing Mark Osborne's feature at Netflix.
Sophia?
Hi, my name is Sophia Alexander. I am the creator and showrunner of Onyx Equinox. I have been in the industry for a little over 6 years, and I started my career by storyboarding for Cartoon Network and Powerpuff Girls reboot. I did work for Hasbro, Nickelodeon on the Invader Zim movie, and Infinity Train for the first 2 seasons before going to Crunchyroll and creating Onyx.
Michael.
Hi, I'm Michael Olien. I head up Adult Swim. I've worked in animation about 25 years or maybe more. Most of it at Cartoon Network and Adult Swim. I've had a lot of creative jobs there, marketing job. I oversaw development for Cartoon Network for a couple of years. I'm an Adult Swim show creator as well, and I'm just happy to be on this panel and talk about something I love, animation.
Well, great. I mean, we recognize that there are probably people in the audience who are not very familiar with the animation pipeline. So we thought it might be good to just do a real brief overview. Michael, do you want to just walk us through that real quickly?
Yeah, I love doing this actually, but everybody chime in if I get anything wrong, because there's a couple ways about it. And I think that the four of us all share the love of the romance of the rhythm of producing animation. There's something about it that's predictable for every project, but also you never actually know what's going to happen. But the bare bones of it, if you don't know, the bare bones of it are, you start with either a script or an outline. And right here, things diverge quickly. A script-driven show is scripted out, and then you'll record voice talent usually. A storyboard-driven show is there's an outline, and then artists get together and storyboard things out. A lot of times using Post-it notes in a room. And from there, you kind of go. You record voice talent after you sort of know what the story is, either a script or a storyboard. Record voice talent, assemble what we call a radio play, which is basically all the dialogue come together, sometimes with sound effects as well. And then you marry that to a storyboard. Either a storyboard artist draw to the dialogue recorded, or they've already drawn a rough storyboard and voice actors perform to it. But at some point, the radio play and the storyboard converge to be made into a boardomatic or an animatic. I don't know why we call those two different things, you guys. If you do, chime in and tell me. And then with a boardomatic or animatic, you're laying out the timing of things. You're making sure the voice and the acting work. Now a lot of people start to slightly animate in a boardomatic or animatic phase. You might add sound effects to make sure things are working and jokes are landing and the story is being told. Meanwhile, people are designing props, they're designing backgrounds. Everything you see is being designed mostly on computer now, but still a lot by hand. Everything you see. all of that's assembled into animation and goes into pure animation at that stage. Things are then composited together, added up, and then we sweeten it, which means we add sound effects and music to the end. So that's sort of, it's an 18-month process generally, right, guys? And it is, man, it may take about 60 people, 70 people, or I assume for features, it's probably hundreds of people working for 18 months to make something that you see animated. So it is an insane labor of cooperation and coordination among people.
Yeah, so the feature, no, you're great. Yeah, the feature process is a much longer process. So I'm currently making a film that we just started a couple of weeks ago. That was a blacklisted script back in 2009. It's gone through many homes, and we spent the last summer and fall rewriting for the third time. And we're starting the storyboarding process. It'll take us about 5 months to get the first set of reels up. And we'll do another set of reels. And then probably after the third set of reels, which will be about 12, 14 months later, we will actually start shot production. So while we're doing the storyboarding, we're designing the characters, defining production design and designing. And so the way I explain it to my live action counterpart producers is that, animation is like watching paint dry. But if you don't, prep your house properly, when the paint dries, you will end up with nightmare.
Well put. That's a very apt metaphor. Because sometimes it really feels like you're watching paint dry. It can be a very long.
It can be slow.
Yeah.
But it's also like Christmas every day, because you come in and like there's new things to see, and it's never not exciting. There's always something else happening or coming in that gives you kind of like that extra, it's coming together, it's happening, it's becoming real. It's not just in your head. It's not just on words. It's no longer in black and white, or like the characters are moving and the music is coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of rush,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So this, last year, COVID hit around March. I think it was March 13th, March 12th. I don't know if it was different in Atlanta for you, Michael, but, we all hunkered down and quarantined. What kind of impact did that have on your, productions?
Well, for us, I was in New York on March 9th. I remember listening to the news and saying to my co-producer, I think we're going to have to call Netflix in LA and let them know what we're going to do. And sure enough, on the morning of March 10th, we saw what was happening in New York City, and we said, okay, we're going to send everyone home. So we all thought it was going to be 4 weeks, 6 weeks. That's what the news was saying. And so we said, okay, well, pack your bags and we'll get your computer sent home and go home. And I watched everyone leave, and on the 13th of March, I flew back to LA. And here we are.
Did you find anything, Michael, that was, tools that you already had in place that, made the transition easier?
I think that, I think that the fact that a lot of animation is done digitally now, even though it's still done by hand, made everyone's transition easier. And I would say, but you guys can correct me, that animators, storyboard artists or prop designers or character designers generally want to have headphones on and doing their work anyway, so they're okay. Writing is hard. We're fine. Yeah, I think it's more focused than it ever has been. People are way more efficient in terms of writing than they ever have been. There's less talking about the snacks in the break in the snack room, and there's a little less kind of chit chat. But also, sort of as this drags on, the topics that people are writing about start to constrict. I feel like the same topics are starting to come up over and over again. And then, all the different kind of software that we have to review materials and give notes and all that is out there. I don't think any of us feel like it's perfect, especially when it comes to editing. Anything that's, in comedy, certainly in animation, things that can be 2 frames can make a huge difference in terms of a joke landing or not landing. And editing, because of the lag of the internet, is just hard. So it's a little bit like making a chocolate birthday cake, but with robot arms, and you're not actually touching the eggs, you're sort of controlling robot arms. And so it's a little inapproximate. Also, same with sweetening and sound design. So, we use Evercast as a way to try to all edit something together. And I've never had I've sat in several good edit Evercasts, and it's not good. You just can't do it. I'm like, no, cut now. And it's the lag is there.
Yep. I feel that. That happened to us when we were doing mix as well. Or we were doing the re-recordings. I'd be like, I would see the picture, and then I would have the voice actor come in, or like we would have the technician be like, okay, stop. Can you make it a little bit louder? It's like, well, louder for you would be louder different for them, and they hear it in a completely different way because they specialize in sound design, and so their technology is a lot better than my simple iPod headphones or whatever. So you don't really know if what they're hearing you're hearing, and vice versa. Same with the voice actors, same with color. Going into edit, I can't remember what was the name of the program that we used, but basically it was just kind of like they put the picture up in like this site, and you could play it whenever you wanted it, but it lived in this site, and the editor would come in and put the correct colors there that you asked for. But it's hard for me to not be sitting there with my supervising producer, Kuni Tomita, and be like, make it more lavender, or like remove some of that red. I don't want that to be too red. But again, my screen, I have 2 screens in front of me. I have my Cintiq screen and I have my computer screen. And both of those screens are completely different colors, completely different. So if my own screens that are connected to the same computer are completely calibrated differently, what does that mean for Kuni's computer, for my editor's computer? It really is the game of telephone, except with everything. So yeah, it was frustrating at times, to say the least. But again, it's when you see it all come together, you're like, whew, how did that happen? It really is a marvel.
I think animation has a predominant amount of introverts, and as you said earlier, Michael, people who are just happy as can be to sit on their computer with their headphones and draw or build models or do whatever the work is that they need to do. But there is a price or a cost to being isolated and separated on a human personal, cost, I think. Can you guys talk about that a little bit? Because it's a creative process. We're not making widgets here. So it has to have had some sort of impact to be separated physically from each other.
Totally. Like I was saying before, I mean, these hallway conversations are not happening. The water cooler conversations are not happening. So all these creative conversations that we're normally used to having all have to be scheduled, and it becomes a more deliberate conversation. So I think there's going to be some impact to that. It's hard for me to measure right now because we're still in the process of it. And what we've had to do is be more formal in terms of how do we do story launches, how do we do art launches, because we have to be very effective communicators. But I think one good thing that this has brought is that it has democratized the room, meaning that everyone is a little square box. And we've all learned how to make sure that we give a voice for each person that's in the square box, which is something that wasn't happening when we were in a room. So I feel like in a positive way, this is a good thing. But again, losing that, hallway and water cooler conversation, I think, is something that will probably impact creatively.
Yeah, I agree. I have myself being an artist, like you said, I like putting my headphones on and listening to music. And it's different than being in the office when I was designing characters for my show. I would put my headphones on and try, but then I realized I can't do that because I have people coming in and be like, Sophia, can I have you see this? Let's go walk over there. Or like, hey, a storyboard artist has this question. So I never really had a chance to sit down, put my headphones on, disconnect, and just do my thing. So in a way, I became more productive because I didn't have people coming to me constantly. And initially I was like, finally, I get to work. But at the same time, those were like, in a way, they were breathers. It was me disconnecting and coming to myself again, like taking a breath and then going back to it. But I didn't notice those little breaks, so to speak, because in here you have a controlled environment and you notice how little you are detaching yourself from your seat, from your computer. I've had days where like I did not realize I was in front of my computer for 12, 13 hours straight until my legs started like hurting. And I realized, but that never happened at work. It was because I had excuses to stand up, go to, for example, Jinko was saying, for like the hallway and like the water cooler, and like you just have these breaks. And I don't want to call them breaks because they really, when you're working, those really aren't. But at the same time, this has given me a bigger understanding of how we used to live and how many things we took for granted and how many other little things were either helping us work versus it stopping us from working. And it really is a double-edged sword. It's so strange to this day. Even though I can focus more, I feel like I get less done now because I just start thinking and like, oh, I'm gonna check my phone or I'm gonna do this, because your brain needs those breaks that you were organically taking that you no longer take now. It's weird.
One of the things, as Michael said very early on, there's can be, anywhere from 25 to 150, 200 people involved in making, either a feature or a series, and television series. Many of your partners are overseas, but I believe that some of the best creative stuff comes out of that collaboration and that sense of team, and it seems like that's a big thing that's now being challenged for us, is being able to bring together, and Jinko, you're starting a new project. You have you're in the early stages of the project that you're doing now. What are you going to do differently in order to create that sort of sense of team? And, because what that does is bring everybody has a commitment to do their very best work for the project. So it is an important element of making content. So any thoughts on how you guys are going to do things a little bit differently now?
Yes. So I think, we're all trying to learn from each other, best practices, and the other day I was talking to our new head of story, and she said she was just finishing up another film, and she said, we don't need any more social conversation on Zoom. If we're going to have Zoom calls, let's talk about story. I think a lot of the producers felt the need to keep everyone together. So they were scheduling a lot of social hours. And she said, frankly, that doesn't help us, but if we can talk story. So we've been very deliberate about trying to create a more inclusive conversation with story, and trying to be more sharing, because there is no artwork on the walls, right? So we're now pitching the artwork so that story artists can see all what the art department is doing. Or we're going to be inviting art department into sessions where they can see story being pitched. We want to make sure that when editorial is done with the sequence, we would share with the crew. So we're creating this virtual visual space that we don't have in a physical space. So we've been looking at different types of software. How do we create that environment virtually? So that's one of the things that we're really looking into, so that our time together on Google Hangout or Zoom is more creative and collaborative nature. So that will be an interesting challenge that I think we'll have to go through as a team, versus, you know, having remote artists in different parts of the world where the room is connecting with one artist. It'll be all of us connecting virtually. So
it's interesting. Yeah. It's interesting just to hear you say that, because it sounds like it's actually, you're engaging the full team in more aspects of the production, which, you know, especially in television series stuff, people are usually pretty segmented, and you have your art department team, you have your story team, and a lot of times, I mean, they may socialize together, but, you know, it's interesting to think of bringing the full team together rather than around social issues, around the creative issues, which I would think could be even more important to people to feel really integrated into the full process of the production.
Yeah, and I think, you know, typically on a feature, I mean, you know, you get that a lot of it from osmosis, being in that space, right? But when that space doesn't exist, I think we have to create it virtually. So by creating it virtually, I think, again, we're being more deliberate. So Mark, my director, you know, he's always great about creating a deck, but, you know, he's evolving that deck as every day goes by. So every time he pitches the movie, he's incorporating new elements, so that, you know, the same people could be sitting in a room and get something new out of this every time you hear his pitch. And so I think that type of collaboration that is that deliberate could potentially end up with a better result, you know. I think proof will be in the pudding. We won't know that for a couple of years until we're done with the film, but I feel really encouraged listening to people, hearing, you know, what the challenges were over the last almost 12 months, what worked and what didn't. And we're trying to learn from people's challenges and what has worked or not.
Hey, Michael, in working in comedy, have you guys started to develop, you know, new strategies or, you know, ways to work around that you think might be, you know, work around the quarantine situation that may actually enhance the future of how you do production?
Yeah, I think one thing, to echo the democratization idea, when you're in a writer's room, weirdly, who has control of the projector or the screen dictates a lot of the conversation in the room. And being at home means these virtual writers' rooms, there's two benefits I see. One is a writer's room can draw globally. So not everyone has to be in Los Angeles, which has been helping diversity of our writers' rooms a ton, because you're not just picking from one geographic location. So there's more people that you can hire to a series. So that's good. And then the second thing is that who's throwing up visual references or joke references or whatever is completely democratized, because it's all just going on in chat. So weirdly, the chat is a second parallel writer room where a lot of the actual clowning around, gossiping, social stuff, but also a lot of story starts is happening in the chat versus what's happening on the screen. And I do think that will carry forward and change how writers' rooms are. And I think also, historically, writers' rooms for comedy is, you know, the joke is if someone's in a bad marriage, you know, you're going to be in the writer's room till 4 a.m. because they don't want to go home. Being home and doing it this way means everyone's just got to work kind of like normal humans work for a certain amount of time and sprint and do it and then just get off and go have a life. And I think that I would like to hope that positive way of thinking about a writer's room carries forward. And then I don't know that, I think also the other thing is that people are becoming more self-reliant in certain ways. And so they're picking up skills that they wouldn't have built without this environment. And so I think people are going to be a little bit more resilient and self-reliant going forward. On the negative side, just to give voice to this, look, you can only create if you feel safe, and you can only, and it's not just COVID, but we had a hell of a year in a lot of other ways, right? And we in media all feel responsible, rightly, to reflecting all the change from last year and the horrors that last year unveiled for us all. So I think that coming out of this, we'll all have a lot of work to do to take care of each other and build each other up, because it's starting to get hard to create an environment of uncertainty after a year. And uncertainty, not just COVID, but from all sides. So, but what I've seen is, while people's cognitive abilities have kind of been blunted a little bit during this time, their empathy abilities have been expanded beyond belief. And I have always, why I love animation partly is because I haven't met a dick in animation yet. Not really. I haven't met a real nerd yet. And we're kind of empathetic to begin with. And I've just only seen really beautiful things sprout this year from people.
Yeah, I totally concur with your empathy statement. And empathy has become global, right? Because I think what this opportunity has also brought is that, we were always the odd show, recruiting talent from around the globe, having, a couple of people that were virtual, but now everyone is from everywhere and anyone can hire from everywhere. So, I really felt the support when, our country went to hell last year. And, where we had a lot of empathy coming from all around the world. And when COVID hit, obviously, we were empathetic to people in Europe before we got hit. So I think it is bringing people closer together, even though we are on the screen. And, I'm certainly meeting a lot more people now because before it was like, okay, I'll see you when I get on the plane and be in that city. But now we can do this all the time. So I'm being able to spend more time with people that I normally don't spend time with. So,
and that's gonna definitely change the tone and the voice of animation in general. Having people from different parts of the world having the equal opportunity to chime in and say, this is how I want to present my work to the world, and not just be like, well, you have to be in LA, or you have to live in the US, you have to be a citizen. Because that's one of the big questions that I get asked whenever I talk to students or just people who are hopefuls. It's like, well, I'm not in the US, do I have to live there? And initially my reaction was, well, not necessarily, because if you show your work online and you make sure that you are constantly posting and you're keeping your eyes open, like the internet already opened so many doors for us, but then there was the more traditional work environment that we were used to. It's like, yeah, you could do freelance, but that's all you will be. It's a freelancer. Versus now you get to be part of the full team without having to leave home because maybe you would not be able to afford it. Maybe because you're not ready, emotionally, or you cannot leave your family for health reasons or for other personal reasons. Now it feels that the playing field has leveled, and now everyone gets a chance to come in, and there's really no excuse left for us to not be able to say, yeah, like, come on in, there's a seat on the table for you, and you actually will have a voice in this new world of animation that we're at the cusp at. Where I think that's what it means, the cusp, or like the beginnings of. So it's yeah, I would love to see my team members face to face. I started a production at Disney. I know the names of my artists. I know their art. I can tell their art apart. But it comes to their face, I've never seen their faces. But it's because right now they're like, well, they're freelancing, and I'm like, well, let's make a room. Let's kind of like just hang out for 30 minutes. Hey, my name is so and so. Here's my face. It's we could go the entire production without seeing someone's face, and that I'm afraid of it going that way versus now we get to all be a tiny square and like be equalized in this tiny Zoom room. So it could be dangerous if like you're not careful. So there's so many good things coming out of this, but also at the same time, so many bad. So you really have to know how to balance it, and that's something that we're all, at least me, I'm still learning to do. Yeah.
So we all been working very busy. Are there projects that you all are interested in telling our audience about and feel like they should know about? Sophia, why don't you start?
Yes, thank you. Well, my series Onyx Equinox is all up on Crunchyroll, the streaming service. So if you guys would like to check it out, it is an adult animation about a boy in Mesoamerica and Mexico who has to save the world because the gods wants to destroy it. So yeah, check it out.
Michael?
Yeah, we have a lot of new titles this year, despite COVID and despite production hurdles. It's sort of a banner year for us. We've got Bird Girl coming. It's the spinoff of Harvey Birdman. We've got new Rick and Morty. Tuca and Birdie is delivering its second season to us. We're excited for that show. More Robot Chicken. We have a Squidbillies series coming again this year. So everything's moving along really well. And then we have great projects with Crunchyroll that we are doing in co-production with them, some great anime. A Blade Runner CG series, which looks stunning. A horror manga adaptation, Uzumaki, which is a 4-part thing that we're doing. That'll be a black and white anime 4-part special. Should be really exciting for fans of anime. And then Fena Pirate Princess, which is a new series also coming this year with Crunchyroll. Yeah, I mean, to everything we've just been saying on this panel, that's not only done in COVID, that's global production, right? And has not skipped a beat somehow, amazingly.
Rico, how about you?
Yeah, so if you haven't watched Klaus, we are still on the top Netflix films to watch. We were Oscar nominated last year and won a BAFTA award. And my other film, The Little Prince, still on Netflix, but we just released yesterday the Blu-ray version of it. So it is out there if you want to buy the Blu-ray version.
Any thoughts on, first of all, this has been fantastic. I mean, this was a panel that I was intellectually interested in, but I just really have enjoyed the last 45 minutes, 50 minutes talking with you guys. As a wrap up, any sort of thoughts or predictions of where we're going to go from here? I mean, clearly animation will continue. It just does, because it's so, I think problem solving and flexibility is at the core, since we have to create everything that is on the screen. I think we have the basic direction to keep the thing going no matter what challenges are thrown at us. But as things are starting to look better, both socially and health-wise, and the vaccine is coming out and things will start to shift, do you see any changes or anything you're looking forward to in the future?
Well, I think, like Sophia said, there'll be a balance, right? I think we'll continue to do some of this Zoom virtual meetings. We'll all go, some of us will go back to work, not all of us will go back to work. But what I see that's really hopeful is that I think the industry will become more global in the sense of that there will be more democracy and allowing different voices to be heard, which will evolve the medium of animation, because I think, we've been very isolated when it comes to animation. There's the North American animation, and then there's animation in Europe, there's animation in Asia. But I feel like it'll become more of a melting pot that allows more creative, that is a melting pot creative that we haven't seen. That's why I was super excited when Marge started at Crunchyroll, because I felt like here's someone that's not Japanese doing anime coming in to do anime. And I think COVID is definitely going to create that opportunity on a more global level, and hopefully impact and influence different voices to come. and tell different types of stories and push really the creative envelope to animation.
Thoughts, Michael?
I think that because we could keep making shows and because people are so desperate for content right now, that animation is finally recognized, especially adult animation where I work, is finally recognized as a main content type for adults. And, you know, we've been, for 40 years, you'd see articles every year. Is adult animation a thing? Well, of course it's a thing. It's been a thing since the beginning, since Betty Boop, certainly the Flintstones, Simpsons, everything. So I think that because there's less new content in other, production methods, animation now is like, we're good. We don't need that article anymore. And I think people recognize it. But what I would say is coming out of this, I think it's going to be the 20s. It's going to be the 1920s again. And people are going to go off and be out in the world in a very serious way. I don't know when this is going to be. I think it'll be gradual, and then I think it'll be sudden. Mm-hmm. And so I think we might see a time when we've gotten really good at producing animation in all these flexible ways, and we might see a dip in content consumption in the near future once everyone's kind of safe. And we have to be ready for that. And we have to be ready to meet the consumer where they are, which is going to be outside drinking drinks with their friends. So I'm sort of thinking, I'm trying to plan for that. I'm not sure what to do about it. I'm excited, but I don't know what that means.
Cool.
Such an interesting point. I didn't even think about it that way. Roaring 20s. Yeah, I mean, I'm completely with you guys with what you've said. I really don't know what else I could add to that, except that I'm excited for the different kinds of animation we're about to see that is being created because of this lull in content from live action productions. I feel that now even feature productions are realizing that TV is a lot more hard work than they think, because from my understanding as a newbie still in the industry is that people consider feature as being this higher level animation, when in fact TV, it takes so much work with so little time, and like that's the challenge. And we still manage to create something beautiful. And now that features are being not considered TV, it's more of a streaming service. It's no longer the grand entrance in theaters. It's a little bit of again, we keep saying balancing or leveling of fields. So I'm interested to see, like, where is it going to take people also socially? Are we going to be able to say, well, I'm going to go back home to live nearby my parents, and knowing that I can continue my work? Will we be able to, as producers, will we be able to say, I need to stay home today, but I know I won't miss work, and it will be fine, versus before, be like, they're not home, they're gonna work from home. What do you mean they're gonna work from home? How is that gonna work? Now we know that it does work. And sometimes it might be like a good way of saying, well, 3 days in the studio, 2 days at home. Like, what is the new normal coming out of this? I think besides this being over and me wanting to go out and live my life, like you said, Michael, just going all out, going clubbing, which I used to not do anymore. I'm like, I just want to go crazy. And like, what, besides the excitement of that, I wonder what else is going to happen in our industry.
Well, everyone stand by and we'll show you. We'll all learn and discover it as we move forward. Thank you very much for your time, everybody on the panel, and to the audience. Thanks for watching and listening. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Nice meeting everyone.